Deb Rice had a picture of himself.
You can definitely tell it feels like it's colder out here than what it was back there. The trees are all.
Deb Rice had a picture of himself. Deb Rice he was very passionate. He was cantankerous.
He was what?
Not cantankerous, but he's very passionate and took his time to talk to people. That was talk to Derek and not so much Delphi. He always said that Kelsey and Riley or somebody. What did he say? Kelsey and somebody anymore. They weren't. Or maybe it was Bree.
Yeah, Bree.
Yeah.
They were more what?
That they weren't. That they weren't totally forthcoming. Is I think the term that he uses.
I think a lot of people feel that way.
Yeah. Have never seen this before. They understand that this was all just basically kind of a gravelly dirt path, right, all the way. I mean, it looks so pretty and it's very deceiving as what it used to be like.
This right over here is where I think. Did they used to park right here? Did people used to pull up here and park before this? Before this?
Here to the left. But just a second.
Huh?
They just did something here.
That's that monument. They did those bicentennial monuments.
Oh, they bought the house. They bought the house. Now I thought that it was here.
Where Rick Allen would have, like where he was describing he parked sometimes.
Just a second. We need to walk. Yeah, where he'd walk sometimes. Yeah, or where he'd drive. He'd park. So I want to see something.
Pay very close attention to this area and what you see. How would he get here though? So from 300, how would he get here? Okay, and that's City Park over there, right?
This was never here. This was never here before. And this is where you could pull in. So look at this. And they even changed the road there.
Come on, Breeze. Can you do it? Can you make it?
They really changed things.
Well, because he was saying that there were like he would pull over, and he said there were houses. Now there is a photograph from years ago where someone was depicting what he said. Oh, there is a house right here. Shut the front door. Wait a minute. Are we on someone's property?
Where that monument, there was a house. See, they changed everything because I came up here yesterday, turned right. Now they put that garden there, so you just, because there used to be a driveway up here. This used to be all open, and you could come up here, drive up here, go stone doors. Here.
You clearly see there is a driveway here. It's just overgrown. But back in 2017, it was not overgrown.
and it was accessible to cars coming up and parking right next to the railroad bridge.
Come on. Come on. Come on. You can do it, little girl. That makes sense because we knew. Ouch. You're tripping me up, little girl. But I don't believe I've ever seen in the last 3.
So look at where this takes you. It takes you right up to the gravel trail, because all of this area was in the process of being remodeled and updated. And what Rick describes, especially parking right next to the railroad bridge that he claims was blue. Now remember, the Freedom Bridge is also blue, but the railroad bridge somewhere along the line was painted red. So he's describing, I pulled in, we're going to play the video so we can, make sure that we hammer it down where Rick claimed he parked. So everybody, all of you lurkers, all of you guilters who want to argue, well, he said that he parked here, he said he parked there, and he saw cars at the Mears lot. Yeah, he saw cars at the Mears lot because he walked the trails. Going towards Monon High Bridge, you look to your left. You see the Mears gravel lot. On the way back, you look to your right. You see the Mears gravel lot. So yes. And then we're going to talk about the distance between when he left his mother's and, based on the state's narrative, the drive that they claim he took, which is an astronomical amount of time, especially if you believe Sarah Carball saw Rick Allen at 4:00. There was no way in hell he could have drove that same route back home, which the state never bothered to provide us a route home. The state showed us a blurry video of a car and then indicated their opinion of where that car stopped and parked. But we have no proof that that small black compact car even stopped and pulled into the CPS lot. Even their star witness, Betsy Blair, and I call her a star witness because they used her and her visual witness statement about seeing someone on the first platform, even though the individual that she saw on the first platform didn't even come close to matching Richard Allen. Yet they didn't want the other part of her story told, so the defense had to recall her. But let's go back to 2019. Betsy Blair's sketch was the first sketch created, the quote unquote young bridge guy sketch, which was not the first sketch released. But in 2019, after Garrett Kurtz was arrested on April 1st, there's a press conference held on April 22nd of a new direction. We're going to go in a new direction. And now the original sketch that we released is now secondary. They put that much weight on this high profile case of 2 little girls and this homicide. They put that much weight into Betsy Blair that they were willing to come forward in the public's eye, hold a press conference that was so intense, to the killer who was in this room, or could be, sorry, let me restate that, to the killer who could be in this room. The first sketch is now secondary. This is who we believe was involved in committing this crime, and they unveil the young bridge guy sketch. She was that much of a star witness, as long as some of the things that she said boosted their narrative. So let's keep watching. Oh, shoot.
Nature Trust.
Okay.
Down this way. Somebody's cooking out.
I can see it being
Hold
pulling
on.
in over there off the road and pulling up through here, but that over there makes even more
I'm
sense.
telling you, there's all these houses here. Have they buy them?
Who's they?
Yeah.
The trail system?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised. Julie, in 3 years that I've been here, the 3 times in the last 3 years that I've been here, I have never seen a house along here. Never.
Oh, you're shitting.
I swear to God.
No, they restructured this. They redirected this. What the hell? They did because it used to go there. That's what they did. Oh my God, this was not here.
This has been here though for 3 years.
Well, yeah, but this was not here in 2017. This is new from behind the houses. And they redirected the path. So that path that we were going down,
Right.
there was a house. I swear, I think the house was the first house right there. And then we curved down this way. Somebody's cooking out.
I can smell it. I smell brats.
This is.
Now, have you been down here and seen this parking lot down here?
No.
Oh, okay.
This one, not here. Now.
And just to put you guys in perspective,
I think that is
Walking-
the house that we were just looking at.
walking this direction, we're heading towards City Park.
I bet you they did. Come on. Well,
Oh my God, this is crazy. Up and climbing. Okay. Which makes sense. Oh my gosh. Well, look, we have a.
no, this is a big parking lot over here. I think, I want to say it connects to, is it City Park?
See, this trail. What?
Yeah.
Oh, they did that. Oh, they redid all this. Okay, so is this, are you saying this is parking for them on?
I'm assuming it's for the trails, yeah. And then I think, isn't it through the field to the right over there? You can cut through there and go right to City Park.
You know, I used to have a video on my bicycle that I rode my bicycle.
Okay. We are about 6 minutes in, and I already have a fucking asshole in the chat. Holden. If you want to continue to watch this channel and communicate in the chat, I suggest you reframe from making those kind of comments. Otherwise, I will have my mods block you and you'll be done.
On hybrid, all the way on the trail, in town, stay on the trail, all the way down there past the
Oh, shit.
and I got
Miller Park.
yeah, so
Donna Miller Kurtz, the Pyle family, Jim Davis family, North Central Health, Indiana DNR, Bicentennial Nature Trust, Heartland Heritage Incorporated.
let me they changed it.
Ooh. Who is Donna Miller Kurtz, you know? What about that next level? Next level trails. Do you see that on that sign right there? This trail funded in part by Next Level Trails, the Monon High Bridge Trail.
Looks like a pretty good organization.
Yeah. Wonder who spearheads that.
Something. This whole thing is.
The troll said something very derogatory about Julie, and I'm not going to have
I thought
it.
there used to be a Farm Bureau insurance office over here, but now you got to go between some, and then you drive up there.
Okay, say that again. Say that because that's where he said that he thought he parked was the old Farm Bureau building.
Yeah, so it used to be a Farm Bureau, I think, insurance office. It was over here. It's off the main drag here.
Now it's downtown Delphi. Now it's been moved downtown.
Okay, they've been okay, but the building changes. I don't know if it's an optometrist or somebody now. It's eye vision or something. But you can pull in here and you go around and you go up that road, and that road that we were just on. See that house here?
Yeah.
You could drive up that way. And when you drove
in
up
2017?
yes, you could drive up that way. So now what they did, because they rerouted, they must have. I want to know, did they give easement? Did they give these people that land then? Because what they're doing is they're keeping anybody from ever having access on that road again. So who owns the road? Because now he put that big thing out front with all the plants and everything, so it blocks you being able to
go
just
through there.
Right in there. And now it's like no trespassing, and clearly he's got the thing. So you would never know. It's completely different.
Can we drive over there to where you're talking about the Farm Bureau building was?
Yeah.
So in 2017,
This is up the main drive.
so in 2017,
I don't know that it was Farm Bureau in 2017. When you live here a long time, that's
Right,
what you've
right.
known it for so long, and then when it changes over,
you still call it the old name.
Yeah.
So if he,
We could find out.
so that is a thing, because Holman and them continuously tried to say, you're calling the CPS building the old Farm Bureau building, and that's not the case. And this lines up exactly with the description he gave, and the fact that when Kathy Allen came out here with Bob Mata, she described where she showed him right over here where Rick parked, and that he had to have crossed the Freedom Bridge to get into the trail.
We need to get records from the building over here off the highway to see who how many years back, was it, like, how long's he been Delphi? Like, let's say 20 years back. I don't think it would be.
I don't think he was here that long.
No, but when he came, it's been almost 10 years now of when the murders happened. So let's go back.
Yeah, maybe. Well,
Let's go back 5. Let's go back 5 years or whatever, and then move forward on what it used to be.
So this pathway in
if we can
2017
get
was
the address to that building that the Farmers Bureau, there is a licensed company, but that's downtown Delphi now. So I think it's right there behind. I want to say I think it's behind the courthouse now.
You want to talk to that guy? Just ask him. When did they do this? Because the road used to come up here and you could drive up here. I'm not going to ask him if you could. I'm going to tell him you could. Be like, yeah, they closed, and then they tore down this house. It was like, see, there is a house back here.
You think this was like the foundation up here?
this little right-hand turn that we're coming up on is where Rick Allen pulled up to and parked in 2017. It's overgrown now. It's been blocked off now. There was a house that sat here on this property. You can do the research. It was tore down. And I'm going to show you a mirrored image of Rick Allen's interrogation video where he's describing where he parked. This might be the new life that's breathed into the vault, because we have gone over all of the evidence. We've gone over everything in this case, and combating the guilters is something that needs to happen. Let me bring in my bestie. Hey, Quester.
Hi, Amy. I'm here.
You've been here. Yeah. Sorry, I thought I had sent. I thought I had dropped the link, but I guess I didn't. Sorry.
Never mind. I'm here now.
So this is a video that we shot when I was out there last, October, and based on Rick Allen's interrogation, this is. I mean, I knew, you could tell by being there that this used to be a traveled path, and I didn't know what was there prior to 2017. Julie did, and this was our walkthrough. So I'm going to finish this, and then I'm going to go on to the next thing.
This is behind. There's a house right here. And this was the house.
Come on, little girl.
But that's a cemetery thingy. Look, that's a.
I don't think this is big enough for a house, unless it was over. Well, who would have want like? Is that a headstone or is that a monument? I don't see any.
House right in here. Yeah, this is what it says.
Site of cabin home, Samuel Milroy, 1826. Wow, look how pretty. Hi.
Hey.
They're not running. Why are they coming closer?
And let me point out that while Julie and I were there were 2 deer standing in place on this pathway where Rick Allen said he parked.
Hi. You want something to eat? Hi, pretty. Hi.
Oh my goodness. Come here.
Hi. Come here. Come here, pretty.
Oh wow. They're not even afraid.
Like you got something in there.
How ironic, we just had 2 deer. Is there a fence right there in between us and them?
No.
Uh-oh. Breeze says, oh my God, Breeze, you be nice. You be nice. Look how pretty, Breeze. I thought they were statues at first. They are very curious, aren't they? Look at them. Come here. On the banks of Old Deer Creek. What? Site of cabin home, General Samuel Milroy. So there was a cabin here at some point.
What if I told you multiple What if I told you that every attorney who's represented Richard Allen has publicly maintained that he is innocent? What if I told you that multiple individuals submitted sworn statements alleging mistreatment and abuse of Richard Allen while he was housed at Westville Correctional Facility? What if I told you Richard Allen spent more than a year in prison-like isolation before his trial, and that serious questions were raised about his treatment and mental condition during that time? What if I told you the prosecution's case did not include a witness who unequivocally identified Richard Allen as the man seen in the infamous Bridge Guy video? What if I told you that no precise medical time of death was ever established, yet a very specific timeline became central to the state's theory? What if I told you the crime scene contained intentionally staged elements that investigators, prosecutors, and defense attorneys would spend years arguing about? What if I told you that former prosecutor Robert Ives initially believed the Delphi murders would be solved within days based on what investigators found at the crime scene? And if Robert Ives thought the case would be solved in days, why did it take investigators 5 years and 8 months to make an arrest? What if I told you multiple alternate suspects were investigated? What if I told you that defense filings later alleged that other individuals made statements interpreted as confessions to the crime? What if I told you that for years, investigators pursued online grooming and catfishing leads, yet the man ultimately convicted was never shown to have had prior contact with either victim? What if I told you investigators lost approximately 70 days of recorded interviews and investigative material during the most critical phase of the case? What if I told you that same man, Richard Allen, spoke with law enforcement within days of the murders? What if I told you it took 5 years and 8 months to arrest the man ultimately convicted of murdering 2 teenage girls in Delphi, Indiana? And what if I told you that after thousands of pages of documents, years of investigation, countless hearings, and one of the most controversial murder trials in modern Indiana history, many of these questions remain fiercely debated to this day? Amy, when did you first realize this wasn't a normal murder investigation?
During the pretrial hearings. Those questions that you just raised is exactly why I'm here. Every single one of those questions have left all of us in the community that follow the Delphi case up in arms, wanting answers. They were left unanswered. We were strung along for 5 years and 8 months about what this crime was about, the possibility of numerous people being involved. And then when we got to trial, we were expected to forget all of the innuendos, all of the reported statements by law enforcement, all of the details of the crime scene. We were told, forget that. Now we're taking a third turn, because in 2019, we were told law enforcement was taking a new direction. when we got to trial, they took ultimately a third direction. And that was a lone wolf scenario with a man who had absolutely no criminal history, no digital forensic evidence that he was involved in any type of online nefarious involvement. He had no connection to the girls. And we have all been left with our heads being scratched, going, what is happening in our justice system? That is why when the trial started, well, prior to the trial starting, during the pretrial hearings and following wrongful convictions and following numerous cases, there started to be a pattern of bias rulings by the judge. Judge Gall was put in place as a special appointment. And everybody was anticipating that she was going to be the right person for the job. Anticipating that she was going to be the right person for the job. Welcome, everybody, to Case by Case. This is a special edition. We are addressing a lot of guilters who seem to not want to discuss all of the questions that we have. They basically want to, put their stock in what Nick McClellan has to say. And every time they're confronted with the reality of the case, we're called names, we're called pedophile protectors, we're called grifters, all of the above. And today I want to address, and this is probably going to be the Delphi vaults between now and, let me just make it clear to all of those who are watching that support the guilty verdict of Richard Allen. I want to make it clear. The case is not over. The Indiana Supreme Court has found a strong enough argument in the filings in Rick Allen's direct appeal that they feel there is a need for verbal arguments, oral hearings. So this case is not over, as many of you want to continuously quote. And I also have to address the fact that I have a purpose. Quester has a purpose. And the purpose is it's not my job to prove who committed this crime. And it's not my job to prove that Rick Allen is innocent. But as a citizen of the United States, it is my job to hold accountable our laws, the precedents, and within every county, within every state, I understand that there's different legalities, there's different standards. However, if you are charging someone with a crime such as this, the Delphi, the murders of Abby and Libby, you better come with a clean slate. You better come with an explanation and facts. First and foremost, who did it, how, when, and why. Here's the timeline. Yet, in this case, we have unethical behavior. We have evidence hidden. We have lies during depositions. We have third-party suspects being eliminated from the case, in which the defendant himself is denied a defense. This is America. Everybody's forgetting that this is America. Everybody is forgetting the Constitution. Everyone is forgetting and ignoring the fact that every single person who walks and breathes on this earth has civil rights. And when you take all of that away and you manipulate the life of a human being without the opportunity to defend themselves, every single person in this country should be scared to death. And you can sit back, as a guilter, someone who just sits back and agrees with whatever they see on TV or whatever law enforcement tells them. If you haven't learned your lesson by now, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. Just hope and pray that you're never caught up in a situation where you're being accused of a crime. And even if you're guilty of the crime, let's just pretend you're guilty of the crime that you're being accused of, you still have a right to defend yourself. But let's also pretend that you are accused of a crime and all of your rights are taken away. You can't defend yourself. You're not allowed to put on a defense. You're not allowed to hold the state accountable for everything that they provided to the public as their case and narrative. Non-secular, multiple persons of interest, the stage, the people who committed this crime took trophies, the scene was staged. Quester, go ahead. I've talked enough.
No, I'm in agreement with you. It's not just a matter of innocence and guilt. It's a matter of being given your right to defend yourself and the right to see all evidence and to have a fair trial. And that is one thing I'm 500% certain is that was not a fair trial. He was not allowed all the evidence. It was a sham. They've got to undo it. And then if they feel they've got enough true evidence, try again. If they haven't, go away and catch the real person. Simple as that, isn't it?
No, yeah. I mean, catch the real person. And you're right. I think that a lot of people think that this case, based on what we see online, and I'm not even going to pull any punches. There's a bunch of people who are raising the flag of guilt for Rick Allen, who incestuously won't go away. I mean, they claim Rick Allen is guilty. The case is over. The state's proven its case, yet here we are. They are still lurking in all of the crevices and corners in every Facebook group, in every chat, with an opinion, and they want to argue. But the second, prime example, and trust me, I have better things to do, but I find it hilarious to engage with some of these people. And it helps me understand society as a whole. And, because I think awareness is very important, especially when you have people out here who don't pay attention. They don't digest factual information, and they don't think for themselves. And, the sad part about it is they are literally a part of a jury pool. whether they make it to the jury or not is not my decision. But the fact of the matter is, when I see people literally go all out online and cuss me out, call me names because they want to accuse me of protecting a child predator. Really? Because I'm questioning the unanswered questions in this investigation. This is not a normal case. This is not a slam dunk case. And like me, I'm going to flip the script back on them, and you're here for a reason. You're here for a reason. And clearly you don't think this case is over, because if the guilty verdict that came down in this case was proof to you that Rick Allen was the guilty person who committed this crime, you should have removed yourself from the Facebook group, move the fuck on with your life. But no, here we are, the Delphi Gossip Drama Group, which is a perfect title, by the way. Whoever created the group, kudos to you. It fits what goes on in the group. But I thought it was interesting to address some of these allegations and some of these people in the group, simply for the fact that you give them, for what's her name? Quester? Amy? Who's that? Amy Fisher? Is that her name? Quester? You're muted.
Who are you talking about?
I'm talking about in the Delphi Drama Gossip Group. I'm going to call out.
I've seen a few in there that really should go and see a psychiatrist and get some medication.
And they're adamant that, I have been told just this weekend alone that I'm fucking cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. And the barrier at the north end of the bridge was put in place after the murders. It wasn't there before. I have been told that Rick Allen was in multiple places, the bench, on the trail, and on the first platform, all at the fucking same time. And every single time you point out to them, that's inaccurate, this is wrong, their initial comeback is, you fucking dumbass. You're stupid. You're a grifter. You're pathetic. They don't address the issues. They don't address the questions. They want to lash out. Okay, well, here we are. The chat's open. If any of you from the Delphi Gossip Group and Drama Group, whatever you consider it, if you want to come on and argue or have a rational conversation, I'm making that available to you, because none of you
Just as long as they realise that they can't go around chucking the sort of language they were chucking in their diatribes.
Say that again.
Just as long as they realise that they can't come here chucking the sort of language they were in their group. Absolutely disgusting, some of them.
Yeah, it is absolutely disgusting. And, I've been accused of being a protector of pedophiles. Look, I have made it very clear that from the onset of the research in this case, initially, I didn't hold a position as to whether Rick was innocent or guilty. My position was, as an advocate And, you guys can piecemeal that and chew it up and spit it out all you want. But the fact of the matter is, in this country, in the United States, people are wrongfully convicted. Number one. Number two, people are overcharged. Number three, just because someone is provided the benefit of a public defender does not mean they're getting their constitutional rights met as a defense. And I'm not saying that everybody that's incarcerated is innocent. By no means. I am against the death penalty, but I'm against, and I didn't used to be. I would say 20, 25 years ago, depending on the case, I thought maybe the death penalty was just. But now, after working on this side of the fence, I don't trust the justice system. And to take a life when you can't be 100% certain, to me is it. And not only that, if someone's committed a horrific crime, such as the Delphi case, if a real investigation is allowed to happen, if the DNA is truly tested, exhausted, which was not done in this case, if a real investigation took place and it came back that it was really Rick Allen, I have two opinions. One is he should spend the rest of his life in prison. Two, this is America, and we don't torture, we don't drug, we don't yank people off the street and put them in solitary confinement, innocent or guilty. That is the precipice of what the United States is supposed to stand for. It's what our Constitution was written to uphold all of our rights in this country. So regardless, and don't get me wrong, I'm not lost on the fact of the heaviness of this case. In fact, it's the latter. This case keeps me awake every fucking night. I want to know what happened to these two little girls. However, history, research, precedence shows us that a 50-year-old man doesn't wake up on any given Sunday and go visit his mommy and out of the clear blue decide to go out and attack two 13 and 14-year-olds and is capable of getting away with it for as many years. And furthermore, let's pretend that Rick Allen is that fucking smart and that fucking savvy. He's got it all planned out. Don't you think that, and let me separate because I don't want my words to be twisted. Rick Allen is the guilter's suspect. I want to take separately from that and say okay, let's take the individual who did this crime. Hypothetically, as a lone wolf, he had what, 5 years, 8 months working in the community, visiting restaurants, pool halls with his so-called image in the backdrop behind him. First and foremost, I want to know if no one knew he was on the trail that day but himself, why would he convey to his wife, hey, I was there? And from that moment on, he approached law enforcement. Law enforcement disregarded him, and I'm going to show you. Here's the tip. And this tip was not only written down and then destroyed and then put into a computer system, but it was also emailed to yours truly, Jerry Holman. And if you can't read that, here, I'll make it bigger for you. On February 16th, Alexis Lucas and Jerry Holman received the information from Rick Allen. Let's take a look at what Rick Allen said. I don't remember if it was the next day or a couple days, but shortly after, they were asking for anybody that was there to come in. So I went down. I got home from work on and my wife said, they want to talk because I had obviously told her that I was there. Why would he do that? I mean, he's so fucking smart to lay in wait, manipulate being hidden on the trails, left no DNA that was, tested back to him. He was able to outsmart all the people on 300 North other than Sarah Carball. But he was able to maneuver way past all the family members that were in, chaos at the Mears lot because they couldn't find the girls. And he was able to maneuver around the Hoosier Harvest Store camera and make it all the way back to his car. He's that fucking smart. And he was able to get home and eliminate any trace evidence in the car. The clothes he was wearing, obviously, according to Sarah Carball, were muddy and bloody, like he had slaughtered a pig. He was able to get rid of all of that and then still tell his wife where he was that day. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Because I had obviously told her that I was there. And she said they want to talk to anybody that was down there if they have any information. I don't know how much, but I obviously will go down. So we went down to the sheriff's station, and I don't remember who it was that came out and talked to me and said that he would get my name and information. Well, I can tell you who that was. That was fucking Jerry Holman. So that's the first interaction that Jerry Holman had with Rick Allen. Then you've got Dan Doolin, who goes out and meets with Rick Allen. Rick puts his phone in Dan Doolin's hands. And not only does Dan Doolin look at it, he takes the battery out. He writes down the EMI number. He gets Rick's information. He walks away, goes back to the station, destroys his handwritten notes. That seems to become a repetitive problem in this case. But we'll just forget that for now. We'll just take Dan Doolin's word for it. got rid of his handwritten notes and printed off his, memory of his interaction. And ultimately, on the 16th of February, the tip was not only given to Alexis Lucas, it was also emailed to Jerry Holman. And let me remind you, on the tip, the very bottom, right there, says lead cleared. This was not a lost tip. Doolin, Lucas, Holman. 3 investigators on this case had access to this tip. This was not a lost tip. And then you can add a 4th encounter because Jerry Holman is who Rick Allen encountered when he walked into the Delphi police station and was sent on his way. And then Dan Doolin contacted him. Dan Doolin takes the shitty half-assed report, gets rid of his notes. The tip is then emailed to Lucas and Jerry Holman. And then it sits in Kathy Shank's drawer, who is supposed, her claim to fame is that she is OCD on records. And they moved, 3-4 different times. The desk that she worked at, she moved, and she was documenting all of the Orion file tips and printing them off and uploading them and making copies of supplemental reports. Yet in her desk drawer for all these years, that tip lay dormant. No. This tip became useful during a sheriff's election. Quester?
No, you're covering everything basically well, Amy. Not a lot I can add. I don't believe anything that Doolin's saying here. Even putting aside his predilection for lying in court. By his own admission, he didn't tape his conversation with Richard Allen. He didn't contemporaneously write it down. He sometime years later decided to just break it all up, and this is what he said. Bullshit.
It is bullshit. It's absolutely bullshit. And I get so angered because in reality, and I know that you are in the UK, and I'm not so educated on how your government and your citizenship works. But here, I know that my taxpayer dollars, getting up at 3 a.m. every day and going to work all day, every day, and I pay taxes on those hours and that hard sweat and tears that I put into my job. And a lot of these positions are people that are in position because they were elected, meaning they have constituents who have bolstered them as the individual that's supposed to represent them. And I do not understand why half of our society here in America don't feel emboldened to hold their elected officials accountable when they're jet setting, running around the country, making appearances, doing whatever it is that they do, on the backs of normal, everyday, hardworking citizens. And I don't understand why people who take such a hard stance against the community who is holding these individuals accountable, what are they thinking? I don't understand it. It's not, you don't get to piecemeal justice for all. Justice for all means across the board, A to Z, top to bottom, justice for all. And I would never, ever support a child killer or a child pedophile going free. But that charging of that kind of a crime doesn't change the standards of this country. If you hold somebody who is pulled over in a vehicle who has, I don't even know what's an arrestable amount of marijuana. I don't know what you're allowed to have or not allowed to have, but simply saying, okay, let me back up. I'll use Reese Davis as an example. Reese Davis knew he had a drug problem, called 911 on himself, and in search of help, law enforcement shows up. There's no crime really being committed at the property. He's just wanting help. Yet law enforcement, breaks down the door. They go in and they find a quarter of items that could be used to cook meth. And because he's within 1,000 feet of a YMCA, he's sentenced to 50 years. Okay, so kudos. We're holding that standard, right? As Americans, as an American justice system, we're holding that standard. Villains, drug dealers, lawbreakers need to be prosecuted. Yet, we have put a president in office with 34 counts of felony charges. This country has lost its way. And when you look at this case and all of the stories that law enforcement provided to us, we have a non-secular crime scene. Robert Ives said that. Somebody made sure that it was deleted from the internet, but Robert Ives said it. Non-secular. Group of people. The day that Rick Allen was arrested, they insisted on the fact that he wasn't the only person involved. We know that Keegan Kline, the week of the girls being found, let me back up. Not the week of, but I think it was February 25th or 27th. They served a search warrant. And Keegan Kline and Tony Kline lived there. And they discovered a hellhole of information. And they let it go. They let Keegan stay on the streets. But now, we have this individual, Rick Allen, that they cannot connect not one digital. I don't give a shit who you are. If you've got the amount of digital devices that were retrieved from Rick Allen's home, burner phones, Walmart phones, flip phones. I mean, somebody who's trying to cut corners and save a dollar, if you've never been there, mayonnaise, mustard, ketchup, that's what you have. He's going in, he's getting a burner phone because it's cheap. He can't afford to, to go on a Verizon account or a Sprint or whatever the case may be. He's got flip phones. He's got burner phones. He works for Walmart. So Walmart is providing him a discount. So he's got all these phones from his entire life's history. And law enforcement has access to all of it. And they cannot find not one goddamn piece of evidence to connect him to Keegan Klein, Brad Holder, Patrick Westfall, Ron Logan, Elvis Fields, Abby Williams, Liberty German, Derek German, Becky Patty, Mike Patty. There is no connection whatsoever. Yet, every single name that I just named has connections to everybody else on the list that I just named. Richard Allen is the one that you can extract from that conversation because there is absolutely no connection. Quester?
Yeah, which made Richard Allen the perfect patsy. Had they, for instance, grabbed Elvis Fields, he would, because of his connections and because of his mouth, have linked through to the others. Same with all the rest of them. They needed somebody who would not lead into the people they wanted to protect.
Exactly. Rick Allen was the perfect scapegoat. He was a man who had no axe to grind. He had no dirt on anybody in that county, especially law enforcement. He had no knowledge of Odinism yet, and I don't care what anybody says, especially those lurking on the guilter side who want to call bullshit about the Odinist theory. The fact of the matter is that Carroll County, ISP, the Indiana State Police, and the FBI spent several years investigating that avenue of the motive of the crime, Odinism. And when I see people trying to argue with me about the facts of the case, and they just keep spewing, what Nick McClelland says. They keep spewing, well, he saw a white van, so he killed the girls and he ran. No, the fuck he didn't. If you believe the state's narrative contradicts itself. The state's narrative has Abby and Libby dead before 2:32. It's almost 90 minutes later that the state's next witness comes on the scene and says, "Oh yeah, I saw the BG on 300 North, muddy and bloody." So he was so fucking scared. This man who has never committed a crime like this, who had no background history of being obsessed or involved in lurking out young teenage girls, sees a van and says, "Oh shit, let me snuff the life out of these girls." But yet, wait, I'm going to redress one, or I'm going to make sure that one's dressed. I'm going to drag Libby over here, and I'm going to half-ass conceal the bodies with sticks. Took 90 minutes. He hung out, if you believe the state's narrative, he hung out at the crime scene for 90 minutes. This is not the story that we were told transpired throughout the course of the investigation in this case. We were led to believe, first of all, that the Bridge Guy video was so scary and captured the last moments of the girls' life that they just could not release the video. And prior to the public seeing the video, Judge Gall allowed law enforcement to take the stand and tell the jury what they were going to see before they saw it. They were going to see fear. They were going to see two little girls afraid. They were going to hear that be a gun. They were going to hear a gun being racked and a bullet being ejected. And apparently, in small town Indiana, that's all that they needed to prove their case. Nobody, and it pisses me off when it comes to the defense team, because on real factual information, a defense attorney would have stood up, number one, and objected. Number two, would have been able to take that testimony and piecemeal it apart. But first and foremost, those words should have never been able to be spoken on the witness stand by a law enforcement officer unless he had the factual goods to pass it up. There is no horrific hysteria, fear on the Bridge Guy video. There is no that be a gun. There is no racking of a gun sound and a bullet being ejected. And then to top it all off, you have law enforcement taking the stand at trial, telling the jury what they're going to hear before they hear it. So they're pre-programmed to anticipate that. The state is so fucking confident in their case that they don't even need to describe to the jury or give factual details. Okay, so the Bridge Guy that you just watched abduct two girls, ejected this or racked his gun, kicked a unspent bullet out. This is how that bullet got from the south end of the bridge at the top of the hill, past the private drive, down a secondary hill, and across Deer Creek, and 50 feet up the embankment to the crime scene. They never bothered to explain that, I guess because they didn't have to. Quester?
Yeah. Going back to these very interesting people who are attacking you. I've been watching in a lot of these groups, and these rages, and it's a very good name for them, all have the same, shall we call it, problems. They all can't cope with someone disagreeing with them, and they resort to insult. They do not and will not read the evidence. And when asked to provide evidence, they either resort to insult and leave, or they provide a snip, a useful snip that says the words they want, but they will not give the stuff on sort of before and after, which if you look it up, you find it completely belies everything they said. Now, those stunts say to me immediately, first of all, you don't have a clue, and second, you are desperate. You agree?
Yeah. I mean, I'm, you know, and it's really trivial, to be honest. Being a member of some of these Facebook groups, it's very trivial. And some people can say, well, okay, well, you can't take you serious because you're involved in these groups. I look at it differently. I look at it like I'm dealing with everyday people who are in the community. A lot of these people claim that they live locally or they've been to the trails and they have a disgruntled view about Rick Allen, which I can respect that. What I don't respect is the name calling. I mean, the second that you put up a document, for example, I put up a document in a Facebook group basically to point out, you know, law enforcement was pursuing this direction. And I was basically called a dumbass. Do you believe everything that you hear? And I'm like, wait, what? This is a fucking law enforcement document.
Bit ironic.
The same law enforcement that works behind Nick McClelland as the Carroll County prosecutor. This is not a bullshit document. This is an actual interview that took place. And I can name 50 people who were on the bridge. And those in some of these Facebook groups don't give a shit about those names. They just want to come back and say, well, Rick Allen described himself as being there. Well, so did about 10 other fucking people. They don't want to discuss that. They want to overlook it as if it don't matter, because my personal opinion is that it's easy for them to just put their ear to the horn, listen, and I guess in some neck of the woods, people believe that law enforcement or a prosecutor or somebody that works for the government is somehow betrothed to be 100% honest. That all the work they do is in behest of the citizens that they represent. And I'm here to tell you, me, you, them, they pay their fucking salaries. And if something doesn't smell right, you as a citizen of the United States has the right to question them. It then should not turn into a conspiracy theory, a he said, she said. Just show me the goddamn facts. And in the Delphi case, at every single turn, the facts have been manipulated, they've been lost, they've been hidden. And a lot of people on the guilter side of this case have done nothing to get to the truth or the bottom of the matter. They've simply sat back and listened to those that they have entrusted themselves worthy of leading them. And that's not something that is new. And it's not, it doesn't have, it's not simplified to just the Delphi murder case. It's across the board, across the country. When you have people who put their faith and trust in law enforcement and public officials, they just bend over backwards to trust and believe, not realizing that they themselves are the more empowered person. We're paying their salaries. They are in an elected position. They should be held accountable to us. I think a lot of people forget that. And the worst thing about all of this is when you have a society that's divided the way that we are divided, whether it be on politics, whether it be on immigration, whether it be on the justice system. My best advice to all of you is you better hope that for the duration of your life, you are not on the wrong side of the fence. If you are willing to sit back and watch the wrong side of the fence people operate. Everybody has a role to play. And when it comes to crimes such as this, it's not about, I like Rick Allen. I think Rick Allen's a nice guy. I just think, he lived a normal life. I really like Rick Allen. It's not about that. It's not about that. What it's about is the fact that you need to bring the fucking goods. You need to lay down the law, be transparent, do your job, and show us why a human being in our society should be yanked out of society and basically sentenced to death. And I don't care who you are, your words are not good enough. You better bring the goods. Show us the evidence. And if we're starting to look at the evidence and every single piece of the page that we flip, there is a nefarious bullshit happening with each page, we've got problems. And that's what we have in this case. At every single turn in the Delphi case, the state was trying to make people jump through hoops, hide the truth, lose the truth, not disclose information, hide facts. And they got very, very lucky because they had a judge who said, hell yeah, I'm on board. Judge Gall was willing to not be a balanced judge. She was willing to side with the prosecution at any cost. Quester?
Yeah. And as for, you can believe the police. I've got a whole list, as long as your arm, of officers and troopers, their crimes, oh dear, they've been done for. For instance, Dunning, Carroll County Sheriff Department deputy, one of the ones who was in the search teams for Libby and Abby. He was done for making unlawful propositions to minors in 2017. We've got arrested for perjury. Doolin, he got found guilty. And surprise, surprise, 4 little names in that same little box. Liggett, Holman, Riley, Mullins. How about corruption accusations? Leesenby, Carter, Brooke McCain. Election offences? Liggett and Doolin in there again. Hewitt, ISP trooper, done for sexual battery and sexual misconduct with a minor. Starnes, another ISP trooper, in one of those sort of relationships with his 17-year-old daughter. Horde, statutory rape of a child. And get a little bit closer. Travis Lee Evans, Cass County deputy, found guilty on 6 counts of child molestation with a 13-year-old. He's doing 152 years at the moment. Interestingly, he's the paternal uncle to Mike Patty and Cody Patty. Got a whole list of them. I could just run them off. Really respectful, aren't they? You trust these ones, do you? What do you think of that? That's just a few. Hello, have you gone silent?
No,
Amy?
I was muted. I'm sorry.
Okay.
No, that's the list goes on and on. And
It certainly does.
I guess today, approaching this issue of guilters who want to argue day in and day out, their arguments are really they're minute because like I said earlier, prime example, I have people arguing with me about the barrier at the north end of the bridge, that it wasn't put there until after the murders, which is absolutely fucking insane. Then I have people questioning, oh, you're going to rely on a social media post. No, I'm not relying on it. What I'm saying is that this social media post describing seeing a photograph of Abby with 2 guys behind her in February of 2017. The person who made the post had no idea how this case was going to evolve. So you can't annex it and go, oh, this person didn't know what they were talking about. There's more transparency. There's more evidence. And everybody that was familiar with the girls surrounding this incident, lived by the trails, there's more truth in 2017 and 2018 than what we have now. And what we have now is it's a contortion of a crime that we were hand-fed for years, that the girls, there was so much video, and the girls, it was the scariest shit. They couldn't release it. It was horrific. And we had girl talk going on. There was whispers of someone following somebody, and a non-secular crime scene where somebody took trophies, someone staged the scene. We had all these things. And then when we get down to the arrest of Rick Allen, all of that went out the window. All of it. We were supposed to forget that we were spoon-fed, the Bridge Guy sketch for 2 years. This is who we're looking for. Never mind. Forget that. Here's the young bridge guy sketch. Now the first sketch is secondary to the killer who's in the room. Somebody knows. Then you get to the arrest of Rick Allen, and the case is still left open. Why? Because law enforcement wanted the public to believe that there was more than one person involved. Agreed. But then we get to trial, we're expected to take a third route. Forget the first sketch, forget the second sketch. Don't question all of the possibilities of the avenues that we have to test DNA. We're not going to take those. We're going to do the bare minimum. And if we can't get the job done based on what we have, we're not going to reach out to any other labs or any other advanced scientific forensic testing. We're not going to pursue that. As a parent, as Abby and Libby, and I'm being told that after all these years, finding who, okay, let's just pretend hypothetically, Rick Allen was involved. Rick Allen wasn't the contributor of the animal hair that was found at the crime scene. Rick Allen wasn't the contributor of the female unidentified hairs at the crime scene. On a daily basis. To use genealogy. That whole possibility hasn't even been.
You were breaking up and then you froze, Amy.
Oh, am I back?
You are now, yeah.
Okay. What I was saying is, you take a case like this that happened in 2017. You have all of these specimens of DNA, hairs, fibers, unidentified male DNA, animal hair, and Carroll County chooses not to pursue any advanced laboratories for testing. Then you look at, for example, the Idaho 4 case. It took them a month to use genealogy to come up with Brian Kohlberger. What is going on in this case? I do not care. I do care. Let me take that back. Because I think when it comes down to it, who the real killers are does matter. But at an abstract view, I just want to see answers. I'm not buying, well, we have all this hair, some roots, some rootless, male DNA, unconfirmed DNA, animal hairs. We're just not going to pursue any extra avenue of testing. That's not okay with me. That's not. And I know that I'm falling on deaf ears when it comes to the Patty family, but when it comes to Anna, like I would be begging and pleading to Anna, you have got to use your voice and demand answers. And they have a complete profile of Rick Allen. DNA. And they weren't able to match it to any of the DNA samples at the crime scene. We know that the state completely invaded Kathy and Rick Allen's entire world when it came to Wi-Fi, digital evidence, cell phones, Rick Allen's knife collection, their cars, and we heard nothing in a result of those searches. And unfortunately, I'm not confident that, well, okay, let me back up. Do I believe that the state handed over all the results of all of that testing? Probably. Was it labeled correctly? I don't know. Do I think that Andrew Baldwin and Brad Rosie were consumed with an overwhelming amount of discovery and at the same time pursuing a speedy trial? They didn't have time to literally spend hundreds of hours of time going through the discovery that they were provided. They were looking at back in 2017, 2018, 2019, Todd Click, Ferenczi, and the Murphy investigation. They got hung up there. Then they were kicked off the case. I mean, that's a huge distraction in a murder trial or representing a murder defendant. And then you have to prepare to go before the Indiana Supreme Court. And all the while, the entire plethora of discovery is kicked back to the state, then sent to a new defense team, and then immediately sent back to the original defense team. There was a lot of fucking chaos in this case, caused by Judge Gall. And I want any of you who are listening, I don't care if you are a subscriber, not a subscriber, you hate my fucking guts, you can call me whatever name you want. I want you to find me a case in the state of Indiana where the Indiana Supreme Court heard oral arguments and made a ruling within an hour. I want you to find me one. Because within an hour is all it took for the Indiana Supreme Court to say, the attorneys go back assigned to the defendant. And we can all disagree about whether that was the best interest for Rick Allen or not. It was Rick Allen's choice. Quester?
Quite right. It was Rick Allen's choice. They had no right or ground to take them away from him. He vastly overstepped her remit.
But the chaos that it created with the discovery, which the discovery was already in question, the state was not forthcoming with all that they had from the onset. They had to fight tooth and nail to get, first and foremost, the fucking safekeeping order. I mean,
well, the minimum it gave the prosecution was a chance just before the trial to shuffle all the paperwork about.
They shuffled it. Things were left unnamed, and I'm sorry, but you can say whatever you want about the white van video, but Brad Weber was under investigation from day one. I don't believe that Brad Weber was involved. Brad Weber is not a suspect in this case. However, on the onset, his white van was caught on camera. that camera footage was retrieved within the first 2 weeks of the crime. And to pretend that Rick out, the hammer falls both ways. You can say, well, why didn't the defense use it? Why didn't the defense provide that at trial? Why was it used in the motion to correct error? You're right. That's a major question. But first and foremost, the obligation to the truth falls with the prosecutor. The obligation to hand over discovery and exculpatory evidence falls with the prosecutor. And if you think that Nick McClelland did not know that white van footage existed before Rick Allen was found guilty, before he put Brad Weber on the stand to knowingly lie. Brad Weber's doing what he's told. Brad Weber's not involved in this crime. He wants to be more than an arm's length away. Before Nick McClelland even became a fucking prosecutor in Carroll County, that van footage was already acquired. It was acquired while Robert Ives was in office. It was probably one of the most detrimental pieces of evidence that cleared Brad Weber. But because the defense had their eyes set on the odinist theory, fighting being removed from the case, having to prepare for oral arguments at the Supreme Court, then returning to being Rick's representatives, waiting for the discovery to come back to them. Then once they get it, it's all in fucking disarray. Rick is being mentally tortured in prison. So they request a speedy trial. What I see happening going forward is just a similar thing that happened in the Stephen Avery and Brandon Dassey case. And that is the defense attorneys in both of those cases were willing to come forward and say, to help their client, even though they still weren't representatives of their client. They had lost the war. They had lost the battle. Stephen was found guilty. Brendan was found guilty. But in order to help their client, they signed affidavits saying, we fucked up. Every claim of ineffective assistance of counsel is true. We fucked up. And I know that right now we are on the precipice come September of oral arguments. And if oral arguments and the direct appeal don't result in the case itself being kicked back to the original trial court, or there's not a vacation of the sentencing, I look for there to be some serious ineffective assistance of counsel claims laid out. I mean, that's all there is to it. Because there are things that weren't investigated. Bottom line, you've got Andrew Baldwin in his opening statements at trial telling the jury, you're going to hear from Daniel Pearson. And then he never calls Daniel Pearson, and he never gives an explanation why. Daniel Pearson is a real problem in this case. Daniel Pearson is the young bridge guy. Daniel Pearson lied about how he arrived at the trails and in what vehicle. Cheyenne lied about who she was with. She might have been with Shelby Duncan, but she was with more than Shelby Duncan, and I have proven that. All of these things as a defense team takes time. It takes investigators. It takes an extended amount of resources to go out, put your feelers out, dissect every single page. And when you're dealing with probably hundreds of thousands of pages of discovery that you took a reasonable amount of time to acclimate yourself to, then it gets yanked out of your hands, given back to the state, where it then can all go through a shuffle, passed on to another defense team, and then finally sent back to you. You are way behind the eight ball, way behind the eight ball. And that's not justice. Innocent or guilty, nobody, I don't care who you are listening or in the chat right now, if you are accused of a crime that you did not commit, you would want the Constitution, your civil rights, to be upheld, utmost and foremost, and you would want to exhaust every avenue of a defense that was entitled to you, laid out by the rules of this country. And to skip those, to bury those, to ignore those, to overstep, put on the back seat, and have a judge support the disrespect of what this country's justice system stands for, everybody should be outraged. Quester?
Yeah, it's really quite a disgusting case, the way that the defence counsel were treated. You've also got to remember that Gull hogtied them in a lot of ways as well, by precluding them, for instance, from attacking police officers. They weren't allowed to do that, which is an absolutely bizarre position to take. I mean, how on earth can you impeach an officer when you're not allowed to impeach an officer? Unbelievable.
And the fact, and by doing so, she is lowering the standard that a law enforcement officer should be held to. Period. If their behavior and their actions cannot be called into question, then everything goes out the window. And that's what we're dealing with. And this is just the brink of the iceberg. We haven't even gotten into the lost evidence, the hidden evidence, the intent to deceive, not just the public. But we started off with the tip and how many people the fingertips actually pass through. And it's still being dubbed the lost tip, which is bullshit. But we haven't even gotten into who the fuck is Craig Renfro. Craig Renfro is the name that Rick Allen was booked into the county jail under that fictitious name, Craig Renfro. And the sad part about it is Craig Renfro is actually a real person. And they use this man's name to hide Rick Allen, not only from the public, but from his own wife, from his hired attorney. And then they push him in front of Judge Diener for a safekeeping hearing, and they ship him off. I mean, within 72 hours, I believe it was, Rick Allen was shipped off to a maximum security prison. There's another assignment for those of you guilters, or for those of you who are in the chat. I want you to find me another case where someone else's civil rights were extremely violated in that manner. And don't play this whole role that, oh, you're supporting a child predator, a child, whatever you want to call me. I don't want to hear that. I want you to show me why these routes of injustice are okay. And you can't prove to me, or probably to Quester, or for the most of our listeners, that Rick Allen is a psychopathic child predator, child killer, if you had to jump through a massive amount of unethical hoops to get there. It is what it is. Either he is or he's not. You don't get to fabricate the story. You don't get to, make up things and verbally tell the public what it is that Rick's being accused of without the evidence. And we have the accusations. We just don't have the evidence. And Rick
You've broken up and frozen again, Amy.
Am I back?
You're back.
Okay. I seen it dialing. So back to what I was saying. It takes more for me than words. You can tell me, oh, well, this person was here, that person was there. Okay, I'm going to go look for myself, which is what I've done. And when those of you who are in the Delphi drama, factual gossip group want to argue tooth and nail about, well, Rick said, but what you're failing to discuss is all of the other people who put themselves out there at the same time. And I guess I have to feel sorry for you because you are gullible. You're not a jury who's being put on the trial to only digest what's being told to you at the trial. As public citizens, you have the ability to go out and do your own research. You have the ability to go back and read through and track down all of the people who were on the trails, what their statements were. You have the ability to make the same connections that I've made with family members. Prime example, family members called in to the FBI tip line to turn their nephew in, AKA Daniel Pearson, as being on the Monon High Bridge on February 13th at 2 p.m. And I guess none of you have to trust me. None of you have to believe what I say. All I can say is that I wouldn't be sitting here spewing the shit that I'm spewing for no reason. Like, I still have to get up at 3 a.m. in the morning and go to work and work a 10-hour shift. It's because it's what's factually right when it comes to this case and these two little girls. And a lot of you don't feel obligated to do anything further than click on a YouTube channel and listen. Kudos for that. However, what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. And when there is abstractions in this case that prove that the state's timeline, the witnesses weren't necessarily on point, the timing doesn't line up, the timeline doesn't add up, the descriptions of all of the witness, none of them point to Rick Allen. And the way this case was handled from the beginning until the arrest leaves a lot of shit up in the air. And there's no harm, there's no foul in questioning that and demanding proof. If we're going to take away a man's life at the expense of two little girls who were brutally murdered, can we not spend the extra time to make sure that we have the right man? Are those two girls' lives not worth it? And no one created this problem for the state except the state. They created this problem. They played roughshod with sketches. They played roughshod with witness testimony, interviews, reports. They played roughshod with DNA, holding back, not testing things fully, not proving who could actually be DNA connected to the crime scene. They concealed aspects of the crime scene that made everyone believe that we were looking for a group of people. The state brought this on themselves. We have no shame in our game asking the state to prove their case. Abby and Libby are worth it. And ultimately, you have Rick Allen hanging in the wind that the proof can make or break his life. If he's guilty, he's guilty. Adios. I don't believe that he is. Because we wouldn't be here if he was. It wouldn't be this difficult. Rick. Quester.
Yeah, I've seen absolutely no real evidence that he is guilty. Look, it's a pure argument to say, well, I've seen no evidence that he is not guilty. I've seen that argument being used by certain people, and it's got to be the most pathetic thing I've ever heard, or close to it. I mean, we could all fall under that one, couldn't we? Have you seen the evidence that I didn't do it? What about the King of England? Seen the evidence that he didn't do it? How many people are we going to arrest? It's a puerile argument. You need evidence of the positive. To quote an old saying, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
And that applies to everything. It's what does exist that is proof, not what does not. And it seems to me that they convicted Richard Allen on what does not exist. Yeah.
Mother of Dragons, thank you. No, you're right. They put forth evidence that I feel was drawn at the hip, and it's not enough. Not in a case like this. Not in a case where you have law enforcement for years stepping in front of a podium and literally almost in tears begging for the public's help, and they're putting out all of these wide range of scenarios and theories and what we should be looking for. And then when we get to trial, they want us all to go and swallow the bullshit that we had been fed for years. And now we have a lone wolf, a man who has I can't find any research or any criminal who didn't have a precursor of events leading into a criminal act such as this, whether it be the mistreatment and abusing of or killing of animals, child pornography, underage sex interest, lying to his wife, falsifying accounts, all of the things that come along with a normal child predator. And fortunately, Rick Allen had an astronomical amount of phones, digital evidence available that was retrieved in the search warrant. And once it was confiscated and once it was reviewed, guess what? We heard nothing else about it. I'm sorry. I feel like the defense team was overwhelmed. They were caught up in a theory that they thought was going to make headway in this case, the Odinist theory. I don't blame them for that, simply because that theory, that investigation was handed to them by the state. But I think that they were unable to take the time to investigate this case in its entirety. But when you look at everything else, the timeline alone, the defense could have destroyed in front of a jury without any third-party suspect being presented. The timeline doesn't work. The individuals on the trail, their depositions, their testimony should have been blown out of the water. Not one witness identified Rick Allen. Rayleigh Voorhees, the head of the 4-girl group, who all gave descriptions of a individual they seen entering the trails. Mind you, every single description was different. But Rayleigh Voorhees was the head of that group, and she testified that the man that she saw entering the trails was at 2:15. Well, that's 2 minutes past the start of the BG video. And let's give her grace. Let's say she misspoke and her timing was off by 5 minutes, which is crucial in this case. Let's pretend that she saw the man that she described entering the trails at 2:10. And she misquoted and said, oh, I saw him at about 2:15. Well, guess what? Even at 2:10, he couldn't have been the man on the south end of the bridge ordering the girls down the hill. These type of issues are what needs to be questioned. And if the state has their man Rick Allen is the bridge guy. Rick Allen is solely responsible for this crime. Where's the harm? Where's the foul? And demanding a little bit more factual basis into what he was accused of. Should it all be hands off? Well, we can't discuss where Rick Allen parked. We can't discuss where did Rick Allen sit on a bench and watch the girls come in from the Mears lot and then he followed them. Oh no, he said he laid in wait. Is that what Rick said, or is that what Dr. Wallace said? Not on videotape. When every moment of his life prior to then and after that day was on videotape.
The thing I found funny was near the start of it, they were saying that Richard Allen's car went past the store cam 127. And they were seen by Riley's group near Freedom Bridge at 126. It's a damn fast car he's got, isn't it?
It's a fucking damn fast car. And it had to park. It had to park at the CPS building.
Wasn't a DeLorean by any chance, was it?
No. And then he had to get out and he had to walk.
Yeah.
Down the main road in front of everybody. And it was a 14-minute drive from Whiteman Drive going the back way that the state claimed. And assuming Rick was so concerned about being caught on camera, we can assume that he left the same way he came. Where is that Hoosier Harvest Store grainy photo? Oh,
well, he had to get back to his car, surely, or did he leave his car there?
I mean, there's no answer because the state never provided one. And
never even proved the car went to the CPS, did they?
No, here's the black vehicle passing the Hoosier Harvest Store camera. And we are going to tell you that that car pulled in to the CPS lot and parked. But our star witness that we held a whole fucking press conference for and presented her young bridge guy sketch and took the case, this massive high profile case, in a different direction. We're going to forget that she also said there was no small compact black car at the CPS building when she left the trails and she passed the CPS building at 218. Shh. And Judge Gall said, I'm going to help you out. I'm not going to let her be asked about that as she's being called as a state witness. If the defense wants that factual information to come in, they're going to have to keep her under subpoena and we're going to recall her to the stand, which is exactly what the defense did. But so much bullshit had gone on in front of that jury, and so much bullshit had been allowed to be presented in front of that jury, including testimony by law enforcement before the BG video was even played, and they were told they were going to hear that be a gun. And that wasn't even on the video. And we are still in question. The video that was released, let me be clear, that video was released by Andrew Baldwin. Whether he wants to admit it or not, Andrew Baldwin released that video. And I'm still not quite sure if that is the original BG video or if it's the enhanced video. All I know is where it came from. And it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. What matters is that you have a state prosecutor and his entourage of law enforcement officers who are willing to lie, hide, and prevent the truth from coming out. And you can start with Jerry Holman's deposition. He's a fucking liar.
The other thing is, it said in the chat. I mentioned the banana pancakes. So let's just ask the chat a question. First of all, the facts: banana pancakes, flour, eggs, milk, banana. They are known. They will pass through a stomach in 30 to 60 minutes. Okay. Now, the girls ate the banana pancake at 10 o'clock in the morning. They allegedly were murdered at 3:30 in the afternoon, 5.5 hours later.
Well, 2:30 according to the state. 2:32.
Let's say 2:30 then. They had food in their stomach. What was it?
I mean, if you believe the state's narrative, they were dead before.
You're breaking up now, Amy.
At 2:32. Huh?
Yeah. So you broke up there.
Oh, what's going on?
I heard you say 2:32, so we'll go for 2:32.
Mm-hmm.
That's 4.5 hours after they ate it. So give it the biggest and say it took an hour to go through their stomach. 3.5 hours after it's out of their stomach, they've still got food in their stomach. Where'd that come from? What was it? Did they stop and have a nice meal? Why will nobody explain where that food in their stomach came from?
And why did that not allow for the pathologist to determine a time of death?
Stomach content should be able to, definitely.
And so the girls are out there on the trails at 10 till 2. 1:53 is when their GPS puts them on the trail. They're abducted off of the south end of the bridge at approximately 2:14. By 6 p.m., 7 p.m., do we need to do a quick Google search and figure out how a deceased individual's body temperature drops? Because there was a drone out there that had a heat infrared that was called out there for the purpose of locating bodies. And the individual who was operating the drone said, I saw searchers and I saw animals, but I never located the girls. Their body temperature in that climate in February, even though they claimed it was an unseasonably warm day, which is really not the truth, because the 2 days prior to the 13th were actually warmer days. But we'll go with that. February 13th was an unseasonably warm day. But their body temperature would still have registered if they were where the girls were found on the 14th. And then you have Giannicola on the morning of February 14th, standing on the other side of the creek, directing searchers to go other directions, claiming that the area behind him, which would have been the area of the crime scene, had already been searched.
I believe that was actually Capitano, wasn't it? Not
Yes, you're right. Yes,
Yeah.
Capitana, not Giannicola. Capitana, you're right.
funny names, always confused.
Yeah, you're right. Capitano. And
Yeah.
that information comes from Libby's biological grandfather, that he was turned away at roughly 6 o'clock in the morning, wanting to cross the creek to go over towards the area of where eventually it turned out to be the crime scene. He was told, can't come over here. This area has already been searched. There is so much nefarious game playing in this case. I don't understand anybody who is willing to sit back and just simply agree that Rick Allen is the right man. He's not based on everything that law enforcement provided to us to be on the lookout for over the years. He doesn't have a history of an individual capable of committing such a crime. And after his arrest, the dynamics of what the state did screams cover up. We have to shut this man up. We have to hide this man. We can't let this man speak to anyone that he's accustomed to speaking with. We have to ship him off. We have to hide him, put him in solitary confinement. We have to drive him fucking crazy. And then ultimately, half of the state's case relies on a psychotic induced, injected against his will man making confessions. And I'm sorry, Gilters, you're right. He confessed like the upwards of 60 times. I did it. I think I did it. I killed Abby and Libby. Repeatedly, over and over and over again, when he is on the brink of a complete mental collapse, he's saying, fuck it. Just tell him I did it. I think I did it. 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 However, none of those confessions came with real details of the crime. And I don't want to hear the fucking white van scenario, because we have on recording Gray Hughes and Dr. Walla concocting the exact scenario of what if a suspect is interviewed by a psychologist and he says, I saw a white van. Are you kidding me? That's a joke. That is a joke. Rick Allen murdered his whole family. Rick Allen cheated on his cigarette. Rick Allen shot the girls and then buried them in a shallow grave. And then Rick Allen saw a van, didn't describe a color, but saw a van, and he got scared, so he had to kill the girls. But then he hung out for an additional 90 minutes before he attempted to make his way back to his vehicle that he parked at the further distance need be to commit a crime like this, that according to the state, he pre-planned. He went out there with a purpose to target someone. 90 minutes. Do you know what a sexual predator could do to two young girls in 90 minutes? Yet we have no positive rape test. We do have unidentified male DNA in areas where unidentified male DNA should be. And we're just going to, because the state wants us to skip over that and pretend that Susie laundry washer spread that DNA. I will continue to cover this case. I will continue to argue the facts of this case on every angle, at every level, until all roads to guilt are exhausted. And if that can't be achieved, then guess what? We are back on the road of who the fuck did this? Who hurt these two little girls? And who's responsible for the cover-up? Quester?
Well, if I'd have been the investigator and I decided that Mr. Washing Machine did it, the first thing I'd be doing is testing all the males who used that washing machine. You could then use that and say, right, it's not that one, it's not that one, it's not that one, it's not that one. And once you've done that,
I want all of the mothers lurking and the mothers in the chat. And okay, not just mothers. Anybody who owns a home, who has children in the home, that have friends that come in and out. I want to know how many of you have a light bulb of a question mark in your head that goes, whose fucking laundry did I do that I don't know whose laundry it was? Whose unidentified male DNA swish-swashed in my washing machine that then located itself on all of the private parts of these two girls at a crime scene? Because that is what the state wants us to believe.
yeah, every mother should also be worried about her daughters going to universities and using the laundry facilities there, shouldn't they?
Absolutely. Or actually, even more so, moms, you should be advising your sons, because I'm sorry, but hypothetically, sexual assaults occur when a male perpetrator attacks a female. So if your son goes to college and is washing his clothes in a commutative laundry facility after a rapist washed his clothes, your son's DNA could end up on a victim's body. Yes?
Yeah.
Everybody needs to be aware of the provocation of what the state is trying to sell us. And it's a stale bill of goods. We know who lived in the Patty house. We know the males that were there. So why is Becky Patty or Mike Patty not being put in the forefront and to say, okay, who else's laundry could you have been possibly doing, since we've been led to believe that the DNA on Abby and Libby's breasts, Abby and Libby's thighs, under Libby's fingernails, on both girls' genitals came from your washing machine?
Well, also, let's say too, washing machine did it. That would require, number one, that the washing machine has a little section in it that detects sperm and puts it to one side for later, then waits for underpants to come in to put that onto it exactly where it will go inside the girl. I don't know about you. I know washing machines are clever, but I don't think they're that clever.
Well, then, you're forgetting, Quester, that there has to be a safekeeping bucket in the washing machine that contains all of the female DNA that's being wish-washed around, that it's withholding from being transferred anywhere else, because in my experience of raising two daughters, which is parallel to Becky Patty having Abby and Libby under her roof, they both had different friend groups who hung out and stayed, slept over. And according to Becky, she did their laundry. All of that DNA was confiscated by the washing machine and withheld from being transferred. It's only unidentified male DNA. We don't have Derek's DNA. We don't have Mike's DNA. We don't have Cody's DNA. I want to know what other male was coming and going in that home that Becky Patty felt the need to wash their laundry that could have been swish-swashed around and left on explicit items. And remind you,
I said earlier, if they really believed it, all they had to do was just DNA test every male that uses the washing machine.
Well, who are they? I mean, because Derek German didn't even want to admit that he lived in that fucking house. When Derek German was interviewed by law enforcement, he gave the Samuel Milroyd Road address as his residence. But according to Becky, he lived there. He waited on Libby hand and foot, anything she wanted, anything she needed. He did, he done, he took, he picked up, he dropped off. He did all of these things. But yet, when he was interviewed by law enforcement, he did not give the 500 North address as the Patty's residence. He gave the Samuel Milroyd Road residence. Okay. You can chalk it up to being neither here nor there, but backing up to the DNA, we don't have unidentified male DNA. Let's just make this clear. My shirt goes in the washing machine. Unknown male DNA is transferred onto my shirt. I'm found murdered, nude. And that unknown male DNA is now located on my breasts, my genital area, and my thighs. But it's not on my shirt. So my skin, my body absorbed all of the unidentified male DNA from the fabric and placed it in all of the areas of my body that it was found after I'm dead. That's what the state wants us to believe. There's no unidentified male DNA on those specific points of clothing. It's on the physicality of the victims themselves. What that tells me, what realistically it tells me, is that both girls were nude at some point. There was physical touching by an unknown male while the girls were undressed, or post-mortem. And until the state, with a unclosable purse string, let's remember that Nick McClellan went before city council in Carroll County begging for more money. He could hire anyone that he wanted. He could have gotten any expert that he wanted. He technically never went out of the realm of state employees. Every single person that testified on behalf of the state was a state employee. Mullins, Cecil, Cicero, Oberg, all of them were state employees. Okay, fine. That's great. But in a murder trial like this, the judge should have never put the defense in distress as to how can they counteract and counter witnesses or experts to contradict the state. And she went above board to make sure that didn't happen. Oh, you need a ballistics expert? Fuck you. No. You want a cell phone, Cellubrite, Axiom, Knowledge C, phone data expert? Fuck you. No. You need a DNA expert? Pfft, not happening. That is not justice. Whether you believe Rick Allen is innocent or guilty, that is not how this country is supposed to work. If someone's life is going to be taken from them and they're going to be, because Abby and Libby's lives were taken, and finding their true killers is what's most important here. But the perpetrator is either a perpetrator or a victim. And if you're going to yank them off the street and you're going to send them away for the rest of their life, you better have a profound case to present to do so. That's not supporting a child killer. That's not supporting a pedophile. That is supporting my personal rights, your personal rights, my children's personal rights, everyone in my family, everyone that you know, their personal rights. You all deserve the ability to defend yourself. You all deserve that the accusations launched against you be proven. And if someone's accusing you of something that you didn't do, you should not be run-rolled or ran roughshod over by a judge who says, we're not going to let this evidence in because there's no DNA, which means no nexus. However, defendant Rick Allen, there's no DNA and there's no nexus, but we're going to charge you with this crime, and I'm going to see to it that you are found guilty. Make that make sense. Balance that in a society where we live under the pretense that you are innocent until proven guilty. It's disgusting. And I'm not disgusted if the individual who's been charged in this case is found guilty. If he's guilty, I will feel vindicated that I did all that I could do to prove that he was guilty. And if he's not the guilty person, I feel vindicated because I did all that I could do to prove he didn't commit the crime. The problem lies with the case, the way it was handled, and the evidence presented. It takes more than words to take someone's life away. And in this case, I don't care what you say, it's words, it's accusations, it's assumptions, it's speculation. Where he parked, his bullet, a bullet, racked at the south end of the bridge, ejected at the south end of the bridge with no explanation how it got 520 some yards away at the crime scene. No explanation for all of the missing photos in the phone data. No explanation for the storyline that they told us for what, 5 years, 8 months. It was this old man that we seen walking down the fucking 300 North who was muddy, and then all of a sudden turned bloody. And this person decided to pull over on the side of the road 3 weeks after the fact because she got an Amber Alert that never was sent out. And in her interview, you see the sketch artist basically convince her, we can cheat. Let's cheat. I do it all the time. Let's cheat. Witnesses whose statements were withheld from the public, that's one thing. But I question how things were transversed over in discovery to the defense. Mislabeled, miscategorized, put in the middle of a file name where it shouldn't be. Mind you, all of the hoops the defense had to jump through in defending their client. All this bullshit in a straight up and down case of, dude, Rick, you did this. Plain and simple. They don't need to fucking book him in a county jail under a fake name, hiding from his attorney, and then sneak him off into a safekeeping hearing, and then ship him off to a maximum security prison and put him in solitary confinement, and then monitor every move that he makes, even while he's visiting with his attorneys, and record every phone call, and then want to release to us, the public, oh, he has said this and he has said that and he confessed to Dr. Walla, but oops, we didn't record that. And oops, we lost our first initial weeks and months of our first initial part of this investigation. The first tips and leads that came in that we pursued, and starting with Brad Holder, Patrick Westfall, Ron Logan, and then here we have Nick McClelland rolling in on a skateboard without being elected, and prior to taking office, letting Ron Logan know, when I take over, I'm going to modify your sentence. And sure as shit, the first action that he did, took office on January 2nd. By January 16th, he's modifying Ron Logan's sentence. Why? Why is nobody in Carroll County up in arms about this bullshit? It pisses me off. And if Rick Allen, which I don't believe he is, but if Rick Allen is the man, all I'm asking is for the state to actually prove it. Without the fun and games, without the lies, without the hiding of the facts, and without a judge who seems to be in your back pocket. Just simply prove it. We can move on. But we are where we are today because of the fact of the way this case was handled. And the state of Indiana, the Indiana State Police, the Carroll County Sheriff's Office, and Nick McClelland, first and foremost, as the leader of the pack, you are to blame as to why half of this country believes you have the wrong man. Quester?
Yep. They've got the wrong man. I'm certain of it. or they've stitched up the wrong man. They've made it so obvious they've stitched him up. So I honestly cannot see how a Supreme Court cannot grant him his appeal. Really can't. But hey, I couldn't see how they could find him guilty. So,
well, when you pull the shades down and you hide 70%, 80% of the facts in the case, it's easy to bamboozle a jury. Especially when you've put 12 people in place who ultimately really have no factual information about the case. I can agree with that. What I don't agree with is people here on the outside running amok in the Facebook groups, spewing allegations or arguments that you can, I can go in and I can completely show them why things don't add up. And, I know just recently I posted a screenshot of someone, and I might have touched on this earlier, but my personal opinion is, you go back to the beginning. Everybody's memory is fresh on the onset. And I posted two different elements. One being that there were witnesses to Libby's Snapchat who claimed that they saw individuals behind Abby on the bridge. And then that photo disappeared. And that apparently held heavy enough on this individual's mind that they felt the need to go publicly post about it. Are we to call that person a liar because that person in February of 2017 anticipated that the perpetrator in this case wouldn't be arrested until 8 years later? Is that what we're supposed to believe? Then I post an audio clip of Kelsey German herself stating she saw other pictures of the girls on the bridge, including one of Libby leaning down. Do you know how many people argued that statement? Not fucking one. Not one guilter had anything to say about the fact that Kelsey German herself verbally in an interview discussed herself seeing photographs that us, the public, have never seen. Knowing that Kelsey German is the one and only person who had access to Libby's accounts and her passwords and admittedly went in and deleted shit. Not one person raised an argument about that. No, you know why? Because they choose to believe what they're spoon-fed. Well, the state said, law enforcement said, ISP said. Are you paying attention to what's going on in this country in the past 10 years? How many law enforcement officers have been brought up on charges for violating someone's civil rights, shooting an innocent person, and then attempting to lie about it? How many law enforcement, you can believe what you want to believe about Karen Reed and whether or not she ran over her boyfriend, but you can't deny the law enforcement corruption in that state. And it's played out first and for the whole world to see on center stage. People need to wake up and recognize that just because someone goes through training and passes a test and is handed a badge, that does not mean that their moral compass went through the same process. It doesn't mean their value on their oath or your justifiable civil rights went through the same test. It just simply means that they held a badge. And for those of you who literally, this is an unfortunate scenario, but for those of you who put more stock in that badge than your own personal rights and the own civil rights of your friends and neighbors and family members, you are in for a rude awakening. And if you do not start to stand up and put your foot down and hold these people that we have elected, that we pay their salary for, that's what's so upside down about this country. We pay their salary. We elect them to a position. For then what? You cut the string, you cut the cord, you take the leash off the collar, and you let them run amok, and they're not held accountable for anything? That's what's happening in this country right now. And my voice is not going to make a difference. My voice can only encourage you or shed light on what we're up against as people in a country that we all thought were supposed to be free. Civil rights. But it takes a community, it takes a neighborhood, it takes a state, it takes a county, it takes all of us to rise up and hold these people that we have handed our livelihood to accountable. And if they're not doing what we put them in place to do, they need to be yoked up and replaced. And that goes for prosecutors, law enforcement, judges, senators, prosecutors, all of the above. It's disgusting the way some people have been brainwashed to think that somebody else has your personal value and your personal, what's the word I'm looking for? Your best at heart, basically. If you're putting someone in power to represent you or to represent your beliefs, you should hold them accountable. And right now, I don't see anybody on either side of the political fence being held accountable, and especially on the judicial side. And this child pedophilia shit is disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. And if you do as much reading and much listening as I do, and I'm not like patting myself on my own back, but I wake up in the morning and in between communicating with Quester, I'm going back through the news feed that I missed while I was asleep and catching up. And every single day, it's another, gut punch of the sane washing that I see happening in this country, especially when it comes to child trafficking, pornography, the pedophilia, and, Joe Blow, who owns the pizza shop over here on the corner, that Joe Blow, which every single one of you listening right now has a Joe Blow who runs a pizza shop. if he was accused of 1 milliliter of crimes that Donald Trump has been accused of, the allegations that he's been accused of, that man would be hemmed up, charged in the Franklin County Jail, pending a hearing and being shipped off to some violent prison where he's more than likely going to be handled based on what he was charged with and convicted of. Yet, people with money and people in power are getting away with things that we all talk about as being disgusting. But apparently most of us think that because their income level puts them up here, they can't be challenged or discussed. You know what? Who do you think's put them there? We did. Society. You know, I look at a Nick McClelland in Carroll County, and he ran amok for how many years and was a defense attorney and got ABC through Z off drug charges, off CSAM charges. And then lo and behold, on the onset of the biggest child murder case that Indiana has ever seen, he implants himself as a prosecutor without an election. And then everything starts to unfold. Everything starts to wind up. And everything goes dark. Evidence is lost. Shit goes down. And people just sit back and go, well, Nick said. Nick said. Jerry Holman said. I mean, until Rick Allen was arrested, who were you looking for? Individually in the chat. And those of you who are lurking, ask yourself, who were you looking for? What kind of person or people were you looking for when they were asking for help and asking for tips and offering a reward? Who were you looking for? I guarantee you it wasn't a Rick Allen. Quester?
Yeah, this pedophilia stuff is absolutely disgusting, the amount of officials that are involved in it. I dare say you've heard about the rape gang inquiry in the UK, have you?
I have not.
Oh, I'll send you a link. 250,000 young children victims. Yeah, it was all hushed up by policemen, councillors, members of parliament, social services. They all sat on it, even accused the victims of being tarts and slappers to try and cover it up. But it's finally come out now. Been going on for decades. 250,000 children kidnapped and systematically abused. So, and what happens in the UK is almost a mirror of what happens in the USA and vice versa.
And isn't it shocking that when it's done at the level of people in power and with money, it's sane washed? Like, it's unbelievable. Like, I mean, I can't even tell you in the past 5 years. I used to be when I owned my gym, and I ran a massive social media campaign when I was promoting my gym and dealing with hundreds of parents of children. Since then, my political views and my stance on my beliefs, I've lost a lot of friends. And there was a saying that I heard, and I know this is off track of the Delphi case, but it really all is relevant. I realized that one thing will hold true in where we are today in society, and that is Trump will come and go. But during Trump, those of you who are racist and liars and just not good humans, Trump gave you the green light and you exposed yourself. So when Trump's gone, we know who you are. And I've been calling him out from day one. After Trump, middle of Trump's first term, when Trump first became president, I literally was sick to my stomach. Like, are you kidding? What the fuck is happening? Okay, this is going to be 4 years of a joke. Then we went through the Biden saga. And then this last time around, I did a massive deep dive into Project 2025. And when Trump won, I literally, Mike had to pick me up off the floor because I was bawling my eyes out. I was like, I need to get a fucking passport. I need to get out of this country. I cannot live in this place anymore because this is not the country. I've always been a equal rights person, and seeing the change in people that I work with, people that I've been close to, my own family members that I just can't digest for lack of a better word, the hate of deciding who someone is based on what they look like or based on their sexual preference. And the thing is, I wasn't raised that way. My parents never really discussed race or equality with me. It was just somehow something that I became as an adult. And it was the way that I raised my kids. And I look now and I say, you know what, he's the worst of the worst for all of the worst reasons. And I hold him accountable morally. Politics, business decisions, those things, we can all agree to disagree. But when it comes to the morality of a person's soul, we're all humans. No one has a choice in how they come into this world. And we all should be treated with dignity. And my child that I gave birth to, that I raised, that I worked my ass off for, to give her a life, the experience of, playing every sport and going to college and getting multiple degrees. And then I look at the children that live in a foreign country who are struggling every day to get a crumb of a meal, who will never have that experience. And I look at them and I go, what did they do before they graced this earth to deserve that struggle? And for those of the people in this country who are living on the hill of wealth, to take, U.S. aid away from them, to take people of brown skin who come here for a better life and put them in what I hold equivalent to a concentration camp here on American soil. It is humiliating and it's disgusting and it's shameful. And in the Delphi case, I see the same type of people manipulating those around them to cover up a crime that I thought we all were on the same page and seeking justice. Everybody wanted to know who did this. And I feel that it is now woven into the dark fabric of our society of this is a horrible secret that we are going to do everything within our power to hide. And it makes me angry. And I don't know. I sometimes I just don't have the words to describe how I feel about it. I just know that when and I've said this before, when I lay down in bed at night and I'm on the verge of going to sleep, I go to the bridge. And I don't know why, because there's 1,000 of other cases that I follow or listen to. There's something about this case that just has entrenched itself in me that I can't let go. And I think it's because of the corruption and the conspiracies and the fact that I need to know the answers. And it's sad. I'm sorry. Let me get off my soapbox because I can go on and on about politics and society. And, there's people that I work with who know, do not fucking talk to Amy. Anything political. I've walked away from a lot of friendships because people have shown their true colors. And I just can't. I just can't. I'm somebody that when I see somebody who's fallen down and needs a helping hand, I will pick them up. And I don't care who they are or what they look like. And there are standards in my life. And if you are someone that I think would spit on somebody who was in need, I have a problem with that. So, Quester.
Yeah, the problem is, especially in Indiana, these I don't even think there's a word for these sort of people that would fit, but they seem extremely prolific. They're all over the place, and one the how on earth it's got this bad. A lot of it is because people have chosen just not to look, and it's about time people did start looking, started thinking about their children, protecting their children, standing together, not putting up with, he only molested 5 kids, so we'll just give him 5 days at some holiday home and call it quits, shall we? Because you end up with things like this case, Delphi. The more they get away with, the more they will do. Which is why the Delphi case is important, to catch the real culprits. You catch those real culprits and you start breaking that cycle. You can then follow it down and start breaking some of the other cases. Yeah.
And it's a standard. If the American people stood together and held these people accountable, it wouldn't be so easy for this type of thing to get swept under the rug. It wouldn't be so easy for these types of people who are in elected power they would be held accountable. They would feel obligated to respond to the people who put them in power's requests, so to speak. And I am just afraid that on every level, things have spun so far out of control. And and in this case specifically, when I look at the unsurmountable, I mean, you can't even, you could go from the beginning of this case to the end, and you still probably couldn't pinpoint every single issue of unaccountability, every lie, every unethical move made. But there's so many. And you still have a plethora of people who are willing to just digest it and say and defend it and not feel empowered to question it. Instead, they attack someone like us and call us pedophile protectors or child killers protectors. And that's not what we are at all. Do we think?
Well,
I mean,
I don't really think the point is in attacking any presidents. That's just going to be divisive. The main thing is we should be looking at the people in our own societies, the police, the judges, those sort of people, the ones who are making direct decisions and doing direct actions. Those are the ones we should be sorting out. The ones at the top, they're not the ones that are directly affecting us. They're the ones that are covering for the ones that are directly affecting us. So arguments about whether Trump is bad, Biden is bad or whatever, are never going to stop a Delphi case. We need to look at it at the Delphi level. It was the police, it was the courts, it was that sort of thing. Those are the ones we should be looking at. So I appreciate what you're saying about Trump and all that. I don't really, and forgive me if this annoys you, I don't really think it's a relevant issue on the Delphi case, if you follow what I mean.
I do.
Yeah, some people hate him, some people love him. That's up to them. But we should be hitting the Delphi case, the people who did it. They're the ones we've got to take out.
And really, to me, it all falls under the same kind of an umbrella. What is acceptable versus what's not, and the comparison is insurmountable. And for people who defend the behavior of Nick McClellan, Jerry Holman, the lost evidence, the lack of investigation, or the hiding of the investigation, I have a problem with that. Are we seeking the truth, or are we just willing to not investigate at all and let someone else tell us from one day to the next how the story goes? Because, like I said, for everybody who's in the chat and everybody who's lurking, based on law enforcement and based on the provocation of what we were told this crime scene was, who were you looking for? And is that who we ended up with? And the bridge in between the two is absolutely broken. And there is a large amount of people who are not questioning that. And that is equivalent to the society that we're living in today, under the rule of law that we're living today. The sane washing of things that years ago would never be acceptable. And we're dealing in a case of two little girls that their lives were taken tragically. And I guess I could waste my time doing other things. I could waste my time on I could spend more time at work. I could clean out my basement. I could do a whole hell of a lot of other things versus walking in the door and hopping online and having these conversations. And, I've taken the gut punches. I've taken the name calling. I've been called horrific names. I've been called a grifter. I could do a lot of other things. It's just the fact that what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. And I would like to think that the majority of society wants to get answers. Do you hear my dog barking?
I do.
So Jax is deaf. He's lost his hearing, and he knows I'm upstairs, and that's his way of getting my attention. So yeah, I know we got kind of sidetracked on other topics, but I feel like it's all relevant, and I want to continue this conversation based on the guilters, who the people, the group that feel that Rick Allen is guilty. I'm willing to take that conversation argument head on, and just know, for those of you who think that he's guilty or who are lurking, the appellate court came to the conclusion that there was enough reason to hold oral arguments in September. So put that in your pipe and smoke it. And if the appellate court is anything like the Indiana Supreme Court, when the defense team took their argument to their courthouse, and it only took them an hour to assign them back as Richard Allen's attorneys, I'm hopeful that we're in for a great ride. If not, we have post-conviction behind the next door. That is where shit's really going to hit the fan. And all I can say is stay tuned. Quester, before we go?
Yep. Yeah, I think we slightly got off topic there.
We did. And that was my fault. I'm sorry. Sometimes I just have to vent, and, I go to work every day, and I have, it's a work environment. I have to keep my mouth shut. But, I work in an environment where a lot of people have the green light to speak and spew shit. And I've already been told politics is not a place at the work environment. I guess it's my politics that isn't welcome.
Two things you should never discuss: politics and religion.
Religion, right. Politics and religion. So I just have a hard time holding my tongue. I really do. And I guess all I can say is if there were more people like me, things wouldn't go over so easy.
Yeah.
Some people just don't have a backbone, I guess. So
some people have too much of a backbone.
All right, guys. I love you. Sorry for getting off track. Quester, I love you for jumping on. It's last minute. And
that's okay.
You will see
Glad
us
that
again.
I was able to.
Huh?
Glad I had the time and I was able to.
Yeah, me too. All right, guys. Have a good evening. I'm going to go downstairs and put my meatballs in the oven and see what my dog is barking about. So, all right. Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye, everyone.